Running full system diagnostics. Machine status fully operational. System online. All stations are now enabled. Target dog resistance. Operation overkill. Operation overkill. Kill them all.
Hashtag not sponsored. Hashtag save thieves. Please sponsor us. Oh dang, this is actually news to me. I missed this memo. Woo! How exciting. Thank you, Beatrice. I can't wait to hear about all the fun stuff that Taylor has to say about you. Yay. So anyways, welcome to the LAN Party Podcast. In the red corner, challenging from Digital Era Entertainment, it's NeoIvangaming!
Hello.
And in
Explosions,
the
fireworks.
blue corner, defending their very handle, Reach is Beast!
Yay. First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you for having
Except
me.
for the fact
Happy
that
to be
you
here.
have insulted Taylor's very existence and are here for a blood feud.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. That is correct. Yeah. It is a bad game. To be absolutely fair to you, the game insults you as well as it insults other people. But to give your lovely audience, your lovely comrades, just a little bit of context of where I am coming from.
Well, also, first off, I'm going to have to step in. You see, Taylor has asked me to be the referee for this official bout, for this debate, if you will. We're going to first need to lay a few ground rules. First off, we need to decide, what are we debating? For clarification, are we discussing the book Reach? Are we discussing the game Reach? Are we discussing that the game Reach in isolation is bad? Are we saying that the game is a bad adaptation of the book? What are your parameters for saying Reach is bad?
I am in full agreement.
Okay.
It is the book that got me into Halo lore in the first place.
All right. So is your statement, well, wait a minute. So, John, is your statement that the game Reach is a bad adaptation of the book Reach, or that the game Reach is a bad game in isolation, irrelevant of its adaptation of the book?
The issue here is that it's not an adaptation of Reach, of the Fall of Reach at all. It is, in fact, a different beast altogether.
That is true.
And because of that,
Also, thanks, chat.
It is because of that. It's since it's not an adaptation, it is absolutely something else. That is where I am coming from. But I am using.
So you are
the
saying that it is a bad game, irrelevant of its relation to the book? Or is it bad because it fails to adapt the book? Which of these two?
I'm going to throw a giant net here and say both, because it would have been interesting to have, and I'll explain my positions a little bit better, but just to throw that net out there, I think that it's bad in any.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say, chat. I was about to say, first of all, chat, y'all should be able to hear me now. Sorry, that's my bad.
Oh, gosh. Have you been muted this entire time, Taylor?
Maybe.
He did seem muted on Discord.
Okay, it's I was muted in OBS, so chat couldn't hear me. But it's basically okay. Don't you sigh at me. We've been through this enough times.
No. Trust me, I'm not sighing at you because I've done the same thing multiple times. Don't you worry about it. That's just more a generalistic. Aw, dang.
We got.
It was good banter.
We got. Okay, look, we got through the season 3 premiere with zero scuff. It had to come back to bite me at some point.
Overdue.
I was overdue for scuff. And we'll get into all that here in just a little bit. A few headlines
We have
wanted to go over.
do the undercard before we get to the main bout.
We have to do the undercard before we get to the main events. So once again, welcome to the LAN Party Podcast. I'm Taylor. That's Joel, joined by NeoIvangaming, twitch.tv/NeoIvangaming, also part of the Digital Era Entertainment crew. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you. First thing I wanted to go over, and this is something I brought to your attention, Joel, very early this week, which I believe has already been fixed, as I predicted it would. And that is, there was a bug in the latest update for Marvel's Avengers that was displaying players' IP addresses on screen. This is coming from digitaltrends.com. A bug in the latest patch for Marvel's Avengers is compromising the online safety of its players by displaying their IP addresses on screen. Before we go any further, Joel, I know you work in quality assurance in the gaming industry. How does something like this get past QA?
There's a number of things that could happen, and we're probably not actually going to know exactly what it was, because any number of things could happen. That it's possible that the build that went out was not the build that QA had in their hands, that maybe somewhere along the line that production accidentally clicked, release on the wrong build number. There could be an issue where maybe QA just, maybe they have their IP addresses displayed as part of their debug tools, and just for whatever reason that QA just sort of blanked on a certain thing of just, oh, we see it, that's fine, it's on our thing, and didn't test the toggle to make sure that it's not a thing that is held to the debug tool. The other possibility is that there could have been something where production was rushing a build out the door and needed it out for some unrelated reason, and that it didn't go through the normal QA process and it didn't get the proper looks that a build should get. So these are just a couple examples of what could have potentially gone wrong. We're never going to know the exact circumstance, but suffice it to say, I have seen bad builds go out in my day. Some of them have been because QA missed something. Some of them have been because production has needed something else out the door and it was fragile for other reasons. So this happens. It sucks. Avengers said outright, yeah, this is a problem. It's not like this was day one of the game and they thought, oh, let's have IP addresses visible. That's a cool feature. They knew it was a mistake. They didn't put it out there in the world thinking that it was a feature. And they fixed it pretty quickly. I think they got it done in under 48 hours, which, all things considered, is a very good turnaround time. It's an egregious issue, to be sure, but in my opinion, it's a bit of a whatever. This happens. They fixed it. They owned up to it. These things happen.
And it looks like it has been resolved as of patch 1.8b, which, according to IGN, they say should fix an issue on PS5 where sensitive information was being displayed on screen. This did result in a few streamers unintentionally doxing themselves on stream as they were initially not aware that their IP address was being shown. And then the official Marvel's Twitter, let's see, where was it? They first tweeted, "We're aware of the issue where a floating string of text appears on the screen and we are investigating. Thank you for the reports." Not initially saying that it was showing IP addresses. And then later responding, "Please refrain from streaming for now. If you're experiencing this issue, we will update when the issue has been resolved." And as I said, it looks like by now that issue has, as of the latest patch. But yeah, just an unfortunate situation overall, which thankfully, hopefully the damage was minimized as much as it could by it being brought to their attention when it did. But yeah, just very, very unfortunate situation overall to see. But thankfully, it has been
to say
fixed.
the least.
Yeah, very, very. It's like definitely one of those like, oops.
Oops.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's going to be meetings in the departments that are concerned here to make sure that this doesn't happen again. There's going to be a post-mortem on what the heck happened. I'm sure that they are going to be redoubling all of their QA checks after this, regardless of if it was QA's fault or not. Because that's the other thing of having been in QA now for however many years, I have a increased appreciation for the work that QA does when they get it right, and for sympathizing when it goes wrong, because things are not always in control of the department. Sometimes a release has to go out for one reason or another, and sometimes it is a calculated risk taken by the developer saying, okay, we know we didn't have time to do our full sweep of this. but we need this to go out because, we have an event coming up or there's another huge bug that needs to get fixed. So if there's a small bug in here, that's an acceptable trade-off as long as we plug up this giant hole. And then sometimes you don't realize that there's another gianter hole that's going out as well. So, my sympathies to the team, regardless of who is quote unquote at fault here. It happens. Please don't be too angry with them, folks. I know that what happened, especially for the folks that got doxxed, it is not to excuse them. But please understand that developers and QA people are human too.
The tweet from Marvel's Avengers, advising streamers not to stream the game was published at 11:33 a.m. on June 22nd. They posted that the patch had been published at 11:11 a.m. the following day, so they were able to get it out within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So,
and that's really good.
Oh yeah.
You have to recognize that one, they need to find the fix the fix, then test the build, because you can bet your ass that they gave that build a proper QA sweep.
For those who may not understand why having your IP address shown on screen is so dangerous, this is from the article on IGN. Having your IP address revealed to hackers can have any number of consequences. They can be used to find your location, hack a device, impersonate a user, or launch a denial of service or DDoS attack, to name a few. So that is definitely something you want to keep safeguarded, is your IP address. That should always be treated as sensitive information and not something you want leaked.
Yeah, address is a very literal term here, that it is telling them where you are in both a digital and physical sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and remember the swatting that used to happen?
Yes.
That's one thing that is another reason why you need to protect that, because people are assholes and do things for the lulz, including sending armed police to your home because you're streaming whatever. That got really real, but just driving the point home.
Yeah, like as it should be. As it should be. It's on protecting your online identity is very, very important, because there are people out there with nothing but malicious intent. So it is, and as much as it is up to the developers to make sure that they are not accidentally revealing your information, keep in mind, it is also your responsibility to make sure that your information is also not being revealed. So they go hand in hand here.
Yeah. But so I have a couple of headlines that are actually pretty interesting as well.
Go ahead.
One thing I'll start with that I know will interest both of you is a headline that comes to us via Game Informer. Dungeons & Dragons and WWE superstars collide for D&D Live. New D&D Live is just around the corner, and they're partnering up with WWE. So this is going to be hosted by Abria Iyengar, and the guests are Mace, Tyler Breeze, Ember Moon, and Xavier Woods. Of course it'd be Xavier Woods, because Xavier
That's not
Woods
why
is
I'm laughing.
one of the most prolific nerds in WWE, so it's very on brand for him.
That's not why I'm laughing.
Which one got you?
Tyler Breeze was just released by WWE a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's awkward.
That's very awkward.
For
is this a mobile game?
No, I think it's just no, it's the online tabletop system that they have.
Oh.
Because this was tweeted out by the official Wizards Dungeons and Dragons account, and this tweet was published on the 23rd, so it must have been real close to whenever that release date was. And the D&D Live is supposed to return on July 16th and 17th, and I guess we're gonna find out if something changes.
He was
yikes.
Tyler Breeze, along with another 8 or 9 WWE superstars, were released on June 25th.
Oof.
Big yikes. Oof, turn to maximum.
Oh my god.
The only thing that
And
would
the other thing that
make
hurts is this was a charity stream. It was going to be benefiting Connor's Cure.
ugh, uh, I can't. This is one of the reasons why I stopped watching
I
wrestling.
I hope they don't cancel it altogether. I can't imagine they would. They might reshuffle the talent.
At the very least, they would have to, especially
Yeah.
if this is a WWE supported event, then yeah, I can guarantee Tyler Breeze ain't going to be a part of that.
Yeah, they'll probably cut him out,
Yeah,
which is a
that's
shame.
unfortunate.
Oh, but now I'm just having images in my head of
But-
the Undertaker and Kane being like two big time like necromancer mages and all that. And I'm like, oh.
But
Oh,
anyway,
if-
sorry, continue.
That's the long and short of it. That it was going to be, WWE superstars playing Dungeons and Dragons on a stream, and that's cool. It was going to be the Chaos Carnival campaign. For reference, is Abria Lyengar, Lyengar? Is that a WWE person? Or if not, I'm assuming it's going to be somebody from Wizards or another Dungeons and Dragons content creator.
I'm not sure, actually.
So out of the loop, I can't say.
A Google
Just
search of the
cannot
name
say.
Abria Lyengar says
that's not what I
Gem
wanted.
of Misfits and Magic on Dimension 20 show. On Critical Role. Yeah, this is a Dungeons and Dragons content creator.
Okay.
Which does make sense that you wouldn't want to have the people who aren't necessarily known for playing Dungeons and Dragons running the game. So yeah, makes sense that they would have one of their own, as it were, being the GM
Yeah.
to sort of hold the hands of all the people that are playing the game.
Yeah. If you have a good DM, that's basically all the huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, hopefully that still happens because I know Xavier Woods is, nowadays, at least from my perspective as someone who is not super into WWE, I assume he's basically an A-lister at this point for them, right, Taylor?
Who, Xavier Woods?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
He is part of the
New Day.
He's part of the faction known as the New Day, who I believe hold the record for the longest reigning tag team champions in WWE history now, don't they?
Can't say.
pretty
Again,
sure-
I'm so far out of the loop with wrestling.
I'm pretty sure they are. I'm pretty sure they do hold that record. But yeah, no, like Xavier Woods, very, very much beloved by the WWE universe, as they call their fans. It's
I mean, they
Two-
also came on out to one WrestleMania or Royal Rumble while they were wearing the God, what was it called? The Frieza.
they were wearing
henchman?
Yeah.
like they were wearing the Dragon Ball Z armor, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I first learned of Xavier Woods, from seeing that and him playing trombone. While in that outfit, nonetheless.
Oh yeah. No, they're great.
The other big thing that happened this week was Sonic turned 30. So that was
Woo!
cool.
So, in the news of, do you feel old today?
Stop it.
Well, I
Now,
mean,
Gotta
Mario
stop
turned
you right
35.
there,
or-
sir.
did either of you tune in for the Sonic Symphony concert stream?
I wasn't able
Or
to, no.
watch it after the fact?
No, not yet.
No, I was streaming at the time, and then I was tired, and I kind of forgot about it. But maybe I'll take a look at it later.
Tuned in for it. It may have been the single best piece of Sonic content I've seen in a decade. That production was so good. Not even kidding. Just the arrangements were amazing, and I'm slightly biased because the music director for the entire show and the arranger for over half of the orchestral pieces is a guy named Shota Nakama, who is the person who runs the video game orchestra in Chicago. I had the opportunity to meet him several years back, and we got to know each other. Fun fact, one time he came to Dallas for a concert because he's just huge music buff in general, not just limited to video game music and orchestral things. He was in town. It was some rock concert. It may have been Kiss or something. I don't remember, but some big prolific band that I'm blanking on was having a performance at AT&T Stadium, and it was like one of the last performances they were doing. It was part of their farewell tour 3-4 years ago, and I met up with him, and he was like, I want to get Tex-Mex while I'm here, Joel, because, you know, whenever I go somewhere for a concert, I always want to get the local cuisine, and this is Texas, so I want to get some proper Tex-Mex. And the problem was we were meeting up later in the day. Like, I swung by the hotel he was staying at like 7:30ish, and the only like nicer places for Tex-Mex, this was on a Thursday night, were closing at like 9:30. So it was like, by the time we get there and sit down, we'll have 45 minutes to eat, and that's kind of rushing, especially given the fact that, all right, we're gonna have to wait for our food to come, so we're gonna have to kind of stuff our faces, and that's not how you want to do it, and we wanted to catch up. So I said, all right, Shota, if you're all right with this, I can take you to a dive. And he was like, that's fine as long as it's proper Tex-Mex. So I took him to Fuzzy's Tacos.
There you go.
Because I was like, all right, this place is greasy. It is in the heart of Dallas. It is, you know, it's not a place where you bring someone for a fancy meal, but it is absolutely proper Tex-Mex. It is just, I'm sure this means absolutely nothing to you, Neo Ivan, but basically Fuzzy's is a small chain based in Texas. There's probably, how many would you say, Taylor? Half dozen locations. That it's not huge, but there's a couple of them around.
Every major city has at least one here in North Texas.
Yeah. They have these massive margaritas. And just it's exactly what you'd expect. And it's the type of thing that I was kind of sitting there being like, dang, I'm taking this very established orchestrator, and he asked to be, you know, brought to a good restaurant, and I took him to this place, and I was both like super proud because I thought to do that, as opposed to, all right, rush through another place, or just even worse, say, okay, I guess we can't do this and I can't treat you to good Tex-Mex. But part of me was also like, gosh, this is kind of weird, but it was more awesome than it was weird. And that's my little side story on Shota Nakama. Anyway, so he was the music director of the Sonic show, and it was fantastic. The orchestral arrangements were beautiful, and they had most of the second act, if you are familiar with the music from Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, they had Crush 40, and they performed all the classics. The final piece was Live and Learn from Sonic Adventure 2, and it was one of the most hyped things I have experienced in a virtual concert ever. It was just fantastic. If you are a Sonic fan, I cannot recommend enough to seek out this. It's on YouTube. It's available. The VOD's still there. It was just so much fun, and yeah, it was great. For all the things that the Sonic team has bungled over the years, this concert was essentially flawless. So good for them.
Awesome.
I was going to say either Fuzzies or I don't know if this would necessarily qualify as Tex-Mex, but
the other one.
But yeah, Torchies was going to be the one other one that I brought up, because they literally
Torchies quite as close.
Ah, damn. Because like they literally market their tacos as being damn good.
Fuzzies.
You know what? I can
is
agree with that.
Institution.
I can agree with that sentiment, actually. Yeah, that's fair enough. Because I've been to both, and I enjoy both very much.
Oh yes, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, I'm ragging on Fuzzies, but it's still good. I wouldn't have taken him there if it wasn't good. It's just, you know, like I said, it's a dive. It's cheap. There's a lot of it. It's not what you would call fine dining, but it is absolutely representative Tex-Mex.
And they have a little something for everyone too. Like their flavors, and they have a very wide variety of flavorings and toppings and everything. So whatever it is that you're looking for, there's a good chance that Fuzzy's has something for you. Anyway, hashtag not sponsored, hashtag please sponsor us, give me free food. One more story I did want to bring up, because this was posted earlier today, before I defend the honor of the game that shaped my online career. It is my duty to report that River, the real-life dog that inspired Fallout 4's dog meat, has passed away. River...
Yeah, I saw
see.
this morning.
The news was shared by Fallout 4's senior designer, Joel Burgess, on Twitter, alongside a thread that honored her life with images, behind-the-scenes stories, and much more. This is coming from IGN.com. It basically boils down to that River was not just there. She was not part of the team as just there to be an asset, to be animated and recorded and studied for reference. She was very much a part of the team and of the family, constantly spent time around the studio, spending time with everyone there. And that she was she was just as much a part of the team as everyone else. One of the biggest things being, let me scroll back up and find it, that Burgess began by saying that River was, quote, the antidote to my biggest worry for the dog meat character, a canine weapon and nothing more, end quote. River made their goal of having dog meat become a companion first and a combat ally second come true. So,
rest in peace.
Rest in peace, dear River.
Over the Rainbow Bridge.
Sadness.
All right. Well, before we dive into the debate, I would like to thank the sponsor for today's stream, Readings by Beatrice. She offers a variety of tarot readings online from her store on Store Envy. You can see the link to her shop there on screen. Anything from simple to more complex and intuitive tarot readings for just whatever it is that you're looking for, and she has something for every budget as well. And she actually just released a brand new reading on her shop as of yesterday. An animal's signalment contains a complete description including species, breed, fur color, age, sex, and reproductive status. It helps us to know what we are dealing with and can give us insight into how to go about solving problems that arise. You can use this reading in much the same way. By knowing where you come from, you can create the best plan to go forward. And you can order that reading or a variety of others at beatrice.storeenvy.com. Again, link is there on the screen. And at checkout, use the checkout notes to tell her the Mad Woman sent you. That is beatrice.storeenvy.com. Thank you again to Readings by Beatrice for sponsoring our content. And now, let the bout begin.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Well, we didn't. Did we finish establishing the rules or the guidelines?
I think it's basically going to come down to, I think we're basically just debating the quality of the game, because we both agree that the book is more or less a masterpiece.
Yes.
This is basically coming down to you are of the belief that Halo Reach is a bad game. And to be completely fair, I am genuinely interested to hear your take as to why, because I have never once thought that it was. And I thought it did its job of telling the story very well.
John, you're going to get 2 minutes to discuss why, to defend your position. Then, Taylor, you will have a minute rebuttal, and then you will have 2 minutes yourself to discuss your position. So the first 1 minute that you spend is supposed to be direct rebuttal to John. The other 2 minutes are you defending your point from, fresh stance. And then, John, you will have 1 minute for rebuttal on that. And we may trade back and forth, or we may just evolve into complete chaos after that. But, we got to pretend that this is a civilized debate, at least for 6 minutes, okay?
I'm also going to throw this out now. The game's been out for 11 years. I shouldn't have to throw out a spoiler warning at this point, so I'm not going to.
Also,
Consider that your
spoilers for the book.
warning.
It's also a prequel, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Anyways, John, your time begins now.
Okay. Just for complete transparency here, I have also not finished Halo Reach. This is the first time I've ever played Halo Reach. I played the Halo games when I was back in college with the very first one, Halo Combat Evolved. Played 2, played 3, sort of. I didn't have a 360. So Halo and I kind of fell off the wayside, but I still followed the books. That's where I am as far as a player of Halo. Now, just getting to the defense of this game, or not to defense, to my offense of this game. And
Yeah, I was about to say.
yeah, that my brain can do that. Plus, I've been awake since almost 5 a.m. So
All right, your time starts for real.
for
now.
real right now. All right, all right. I just had to give that context to your audience, to your lovely audience. So after having replayed Halo Combat Evolved 2, 3, Halo 3 ODST, and I didn't want to try Halo 4 because I remember hearing that it wasn't that great. I tried Halo Reach with an open mind. Now, I went into that being like, okay, I've read the book Halo Fall of Reach. Let's just go into this with as much of an open mind as possible. And I was disappointed from the very beginning. Because I don't want to be that guy. I hate being that guy where like, oh, the book is better than the movie, but book is definitely a lot better than the game. Because it's from a narrative perspective, they made it seem as if the Covenant were sneaking onto Reach. And the Covenant don't do that. They even in the book lore and in the video game lore, and I don't know if I'm allowed to drop some F-bombs here.
Go for it.
The Covenant don't give a god fuck about humanity. They see humans there and they're like, oh, kill them. And they just are, to use the phrase, bull in a china shop, or just basically they steamroll over humanity. So I was a little perplexed. And I was like, all right, they're trying a different thing. Now, the gameplay itself is fine. It's a typical first-person shooter. Don't really have too much of an issue with that, except sometimes I got confused as to where I was supposed to go. But overall, gameplay is fine. It is a Halo game. It is a first-person game. But from a narrative point of view, I really didn't like what they were doing. I really didn't like... there was one mission where like it was an actual battle. And we had to take... Okay.
So
sorry.
Everything you said there basically went against what you told me earlier in terms of the definition of this debate, because all you debated here was the narrative.
Was the narrative. I was trying to get to that. I was trying to get to that.
There was no actual
but,
content here about the gameplay, and you actually said that it was fine in terms of gameplay, except for you got lost a couple of times. But that's
I did
not,
get lost.
That's
I did.
Not
the narrative of it
that,
just doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, so the reason, so we need to redefine now, because the definition you gave me is now completely inaccurate. The initial
that's
thing you
why
said
I
was that
wanted
it was
to
a bad
double
game,
clarify.
but everything you said here was that the narrative was not representative of the book, in that, particularly with the Covenant, that the Covenant's MO was not correct from what was presented in the book.
Yes,
so are
but
we redefining
also,
this to be?
We are not
Halo Reach
redefining
was
it because I said that the gameplay works as a first-person shooter. Whether or not it worked for a Halo game, unfortunately, around I went to time, and we got to give Taylor their
Right, so
rebuttal,
Taylor, I
which I
suppose
didn't really
your
do
rebuttal
too
is going to
much.
have to be focused on the matter of narrative, because John did not cover that at all, and
I can work with that.
he can maybe cover that in his second round. Your 1 minute rebuttal starts now.
The Covenant do very much operate under the MO of see humanity, kill humanity. I'm not arguing that point at all. There is a reason why that MO changed with Reach. There was something about the planet Reach that made them change that MO. Why would they change that? Why wouldn't they just steamroll? That's part of the whole mystery of that first part of the game, is trying to put together, why are the Covenant being so sneaky? They've never done this before, and it's part of what makes them so unpredictable and makes the story even more intensive and makes you want to dive into it even more, because you know how the Covenant operate. This isn't it. Why? Part of the game is part of the narrative is trying to figure out what is it about this planet that makes the Covenant not want to be found here. That's part of the intrigue. That's the word I'm looking for. That is part of the whole intrigue of the first part of the story and about the first act of the game is why are the Covenant here? Thank you.
You may now open yours to your broader defense of the game. Your 2 minutes start now.
Again, I'm going to speak strictly from a narrative standpoint because I believe that that's more or less what this is boiling down to. We know how the game ends. Reach falls. The Covenant win. The planet is glassed. We know how it ends. And yet, the way that they tell their story, again, starting from the first act, they give you that air and that feeling and that sense of something is wrong. Something is off. This isn't right. And it gives you that feeling of unease as you're playing through it. And then, of course, the Covenant show up in force like they always do once they've been revealed. And it devolves into this massive planet-wide battle that I think you were about to get into, John. But the way that it tells its story and the way that it follows the Spartans, there is still one scene in this game that I cannot watch. I have to turn away from my screen, and that is the death of Kat. Say what you will about the way her AI drives.
It's bad.
I was legitimately startled, and it was jarring the way that she died. And that scene, like, when I know it's coming up, I have to look away from the screen because I cannot watch it. That is how good they are at telling their story and about pulling you in, and at the very last second, bam, they completely change the game. And it just keeps you intrigued from start to finish, and they do an incredible job of it, even though you know how the story ends. You already know the ending, but they keep you engaged from the very first minute of gameplay all the way through the end because you have to see it through.
You had about 10 seconds left, but yeah.
That is the end of my argument.
Is your defense. So, John, you have your 1 minute rebuttal. Your 1 minute starts.
I
now.
did not feel that at all. Kat was the only member of the Spartans that had any kind of personality to them. Now, to be fair to the Spartans, almost none of them do, but she was the only character that I actually gave a damn about. And of course, she is going to die. But the overall narrative of this was such a departure for me. And they even did a bad job of hooking me into what they were doing. It's like, why are the Covenant doing this? I don't know. Just go over here and do some stuff. Okay. What do we do next? I don't know. Go over here, do that. That's how it felt. The story from a narrative perspective just felt so disjointed. Like they didn't know what they were doing, or they had no... It felt like they had no clear idea from a narrative perspective. And that unfortunately went into the gameplay that I was going to talk about before my time went up. But for me, the game feels disjointed. It feels like they had no idea what they wanted to tell.
That is your 1 minute. So I guess the next thing to decide. Do you all want to continue in this more structured set, or do you two just want to have at each other?
I say just let us have at it, because unfortunately my brain just likes... I'm unfortunately a person who has to categorize things and go from A to Z. It's, as you all heard in my opening, I did not get to the main points that I would like to get, and I feel like in a regular discussion we will
Fine, all right.
eventually get there.
Go ahead.
And I will have the occasional interjections on different points, but one thing I will say, so John, you have fully admitted you did not complete this game.
Yes,
I'm
I
actually...
wanted... I got to, after we blew up the super carrier, which I think
Taylor,
is
how far
level
in is that?
5.
That is that's past the halfway point. That is where I believe that's where we lose George, is it not?
Yes, the big guy who I also liked because he had a minigun.
Yeah, that's the space mission.
Yes.
Which
That was also a level that I did not like.
I don't blame like that space mission. Honestly, was pretty annoying. I'm not gonna argue
It,
with you on that.
It was bad Rogue Squadron. It was really bad.
Oh God.
I mean, the best part about it was that they had the Scarab fighters, and then they tied into the books on how to first you have to defeat the Covenant shields for their space for their spaceships and space weapons and all that. You have to defeat the shields before you can actually do any damage, and human weapons are very not great at that at first. So I appreciated that. But that level, once you got on that little cruiser, then things got better, but the flying was just no.
Yeah. I will say that is probably one of the most creative ways I've ever seen to destroy a super carrier, just by sabotaging their slip space engine into eating itself into a black hole, basically. That was a cool shot.
Oh yeah, it was great.
But yeah, the point you're about to get to was about getting into the big battle.
Yes. Gosh, give me a moment to like collect my thoughts about that, because that was many moons ago. The pacing of that level kind of felt a little bit off to me. Plus, I also really didn't like that I finally got a new Warthog to play with, and the moment I tried to get into the gunner seat, the AI got back into the Warthog and threw me off a cliff. So I'm like, all right, game, I see what you're up to.
The AI, okay,
that kind of thing, which that is typical for Halo AI with driving.
The AI in Reach, in particular, leave a lot to be desired.
Yeah, it's bad. And also, there are times when the friendly AI are less than useful, and and to be fair, in the original Halo game, your human allies were just cannon fodder.
Basically, yeah. There was really no point in trying to keep them alive, because they would not be.
I took that as a challenge. Be like, okay, how many of my squad members, on harder difficulties, of course, how many can you keep alive? And if you couldn't do well, you had to take a shot or something. So it becomes a fun drinking game.
I think I started a mini game at one point in the first Halo game of playing through the campaign of how many times can I get Sergeant Major Johnson killed. He survives it. He survives the end of the game anyway, like narratively. But we're getting off script here.
Yeah. So yeah, the AI is not the best. It is not great. And like I said, for most of the mission structures in the game, it just felt like they had no idea what they wanted to do. It felt disjointed, disconnected from what was happening. A lot of, I mean, it's a typical first-person shooter. A lot of that is basically just go here, shoot stuff. I'm like, cool, I'm sold.
Let me ask you this: would you say, with what happened with Halo Reach's narrative, would you say it's more of a case of they didn't know what they were doing, or maybe it was a case of they took risks that didn't pay off?
That is a very good question.
The other piece could be what parts of Halo Reach wouldn't translate to gameplay in the first place, and how vital were they to the plot overall, and how vital might they have been to your enjoyment individually of the plot overall.
Well, to answer the first question, I feel like since that they, in my opinion, from what I've seen so far of Halo Reach, they are retconning the book. And in my opinion, narratively, it's a bad retcon job. So I'm going to lean into they took a risk by doing that, and it did not pay off, in my opinion, so far. Now, I could be wrong, and that later the game could be amazing. Narratively, it really could. I want that to happen. I do not like going into video games and trashing them. It's not what I like to do. I'm more disappointed. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I think a lot of what really drew me into Halo Reach's story was not necessarily just the writing, because keeping in mind there's a lot more elements that go into telling a story in a video game than just its writing. There's the animation of animating body language, facial expressions. There's the cinematography that goes into it. The score of the game, the music plays a massive part in setting the mood and telling, basically being able to tell a story without words. And all of that, because like that was kind of goes back to what I was talking about in the first act, especially in that very first level. The music that plays throughout that first level is a big part of what gives you that uneasiness of something's not right. Something is off. And it just kind of like it kept me on the edge of my seat of like, okay, what is happening? Like, and again, obviously we know going into this, we know how this story ends. Reach falls. Humanity is defeated on Reach. We already know how it ends. That doesn't detract from the story for me any less. And following this team of Spartan of I believe, because like I believe Noble Team, they were among the first batch of Spartan 3s, weren't they?
Gosh, I can't remember.
I think they were. And like the whole purpose of the Spartan 3 program is that
Aren't they sort of like
it's really
special replacements?
This is going to get really dark, but Spartan 3s were basically designed, like they were designed for suicide missions. Their purpose...
wait, are these the guys? I'm so sorry to interrupt, but are these like, I'm just remembering like from the Ghosts of Onyx book. Is that where they came from?
Possibly.
Spartan
I
3s?
haven't read Ghosts of Onyx yet. I've wanted to. It's been on my list for a while.
I've read it a little bit, and I remember that was the Spartan 3 program where basically, as you said, these are Spartans for suicide missions that Dr.
Dr. Halsey.
Her name. Dr. Halsey did not want to risk her precious Spartans on.
And if I remember correctly, Noble Team, the team of Spartans we follow in Halo Reach, the video game, were among the first, if not the first batch of Spartan 3s. So they go through their training through everything knowing that they will be sent on missions they're not meant to come back from.
The chat says only Cat was a Spartan 3.
Only Cat was a Spartan 3? Okay.
Okay. But that's so weird. Like for me, the first mission with everything that you just laid out,
And Noble 6 too.
and
The playable character.
Yeah, I was not hooked. Probably because I already knew what was coming. So maybe emotionally I was just detached because I was like, I know you're all going to die or at least get horribly scarred or wounded if you do live. So maybe that's one of the main issues that I went into the game, despite my attempts not to. I'm
trying to think if there's anything else in the game that sticks out to me, because it's been a while since I've played, to be completely fair. If anything, this is making me want to go back and play it.
There was one part where they were special elites kidnapped a human for no reason, or that's how I felt, and that was kind of hand waved later on, or at least we don't know anything from where I am now in the story.
Was that at the very beginning?
Haven't talked about. Yes, that was the first level, or at the end of the first level. They talked to the doc about it, and she was sort of nonplussed about it, if I'm remembering correctly. So I'm like, oh well, okay, I guess we're forgetting about that. They kidnap humans instead of kill them. We're not talking about this.
They kidnapped specifically the one researcher, I think, because they knew that he had the information that they needed to get to what they were looking for on Reach, which is why they took him alive. Because again, like,
yeah,
which again goes back to the whole thing of there's a reason why the Covenant changed their MO when they got to Reach. They didn't want to be found because they could not risk their mission being compromised. Which obviously,
Yeah.
which obviously that all went to hell in a handbasket because they ended up swarming the planet anyway.
Yeah, and when that happened, I was like, "Oh, this is where it should have started." It's like, from a narrative perspective, for me, I wanted Halo Reach to be, the Spartans are on the Pillar of Autumn. They're getting ready for their main mission. You see the Master Chief go off to wherever he's going. You are Noble Six or whatever. You're just joining everything, and then here come the Covenant, and everyone's like, "Oh shit, they're not supposed to be here."
Speaking of the Spartans and kidnapping, if memory serves, weren't the
Yes.
the Spartan candidates
Yes,
forcibly drafted?
Yes.
as children.
Yeah,
They were
okay. So I
they
didn't know
were
that.
no. It gets worse. They were forcibly drafted as children and replaced with genetic clones that would then die less than 10 years after they were replaced.
Yep.
Oh, geez, I forgot that part.
So
'cause I
no
do remember-
so that way no one would notice that all of these children suddenly went missing. A lot of children throughout the galaxy just suddenly got very sick and died relatively around the same time. Oh well.
Jeez. Because I remember I mentioned this during our pre-show before we actually went on the air, but I read a chapter from the book Halo Fall of Reach for a competition in high school. And you had to do an introduction. And the introduction I did was I forgot that there was the genetic duplicates. So what I did for my introduction was I wrote basically the letter that was supposed to be found on the bed of the child, saying like, your child has been selected to be drafted for the Special Spartan Corps. This is for the greater good. Very sort of dystopian. We are conscripting your child letter to create a bit of unease at the beginning of the presentation. So I remembered half of it, but didn't remember probably the most horrific part. Well, not necessarily the most horrific part, but a horrific part of it. So, geez.
Yep.
Yeah, because
Do they ever have to reckon with what they've done?
No, they don't.
Not like it's briefly mentioned at the start of Halo 4, but no, because like that was the whole point of the genetic replacements was not just to cover up the children going missing, but because at its inception, the Spartan 2 program officially didn't exist.
I do remember that.
And the whole point,
That this was, top secret. This isn't even on the books.
we are diving
Yep.
deep into the lore of the Halo universe right now, and I'm loving it. But the
Same.
entire purpose, the entire reason the Spartans were created was not actually to fight the Covenant. Because if I remember correctly, the Spartan program was founded before the rise of the Covenant threat. They were originally formed to fight the human insurrection against the UNSC.
That's correct. They were, and they were very good at it. I mean, and at the beginning, I think there was like 1,000 or so children that were taken. 200 died during the initial training, and then another 100 or plus died from genetic modifications.
Yeah, as part of the augmentation, their body
then
couldn't handle it.
And then another 100 plus died from the armor and whatnot. That's later after they met the Covenant and all that. But yeah, no, they were entirely meant to fight the insurrectionists. To
And
which also, that's another, going back to Halo Reach, there was apparently like potential insurrectionists on Reach, and
There were.
that to me is just like, what? No, Halo Reach, the planet Reach, according to the lore of the books that I've read, is basically the equivalent of Fort Knox. It is entirely a military controlled planet. There are very few civilians. Those that are there are just support staff, like cooks, drivers, etc., mechanics,
Cooks,
etc.,
drivers,
etc.
farmers.
Yeah, but for the most part, Halo Reach is thoroughly under military control. Now, I'll buy that maybe some farmers might have insurrectionist ideas or just like, we want to be treated better, etc., etc. But for insurrectionist threat on Reach, for me that's a hard narrative pill to swallow because it literally would be I don't know. It's very difficult for me to believe that. And
Was that
plus
something that was unique to the game, the book, or was it in
uh
both?
the lore of the book lore and pre Halo Reach lore. It as I said, it is basically the human military base, fully militarized with their secret intelligence units also being based there. So I mean, it's not impossible, but it's highly from a narrative perspective, it's highly improbable. Like that would be an interesting video game right there for the insurrectionists to try something on Reach.
If I may
That
present,
I'm for.
if I may present a theory,
Mhm.
the insurrectionists that were there on Reach were not there to fight the UNSC forces on planet. Doing so would be suicide and impossible, and they know that. The insurrectionists that were there were simply because it was like in the level, in the night level with June, where you come across some insurrectionists that have some stolen UNSC weaponry. That's the whole reason that they're there, is merely to steal weaponry and ordnance that can then be smuggled off planet to other cells of the insurrectionists to be or of the insurrection to be used in fights elsewhere in the galaxy. Not necessarily on Reach. That was just their supply point. And the insurrectionists that were there, their job was to make sure that those stolen weapons and supplies made it to the cells of the insurrection that needed it, not to fight the UNSC there on Reach.
That I can fully believe, though it'd be extremely ballsy. I
It'd be
dig that
ballsy,
theory.
and it would be very, like, one slip up and you are very likely to get caught. Because like you said, the planet Reach is the last stronghold of humanity before planet Earth. If Reach falls, which it did, humanity was like, that would be worst case scenario for the UNSC. At that point, Earth is basically doomed.
Yeah, basically the ONI, the Office of National Intelligence, I think.
Yeah.
The Human Intelligence Network.
Yeah, Office of
basically
Naval
predicted
Intelligence.
Office of Naval Intelligence, thank you. Basically said as long as as long as Reach is safe and secure, the war could last another year. Without Reach, 10 days. That's it. So you go from 360 plus days to just 10 or so, like you as Taylor says, doomed. It's like this is the hill that you have to die on to protect Earth, and they failed. Which is why in Halo 2, spoilers for Halo 2 and 3 and all that, but they arrive on Earth. Yeah, they arrive on Earth.
They do get there in the end, yes.
Thank you, chat, for the clarification on those numbers. It has been a long time since I've read, so it was 200 children, not 1,000. My bad.
I think the game did do a fairly good job of at least hammering home the strategic importance of Reach and why it was so important that it had to be protected. Because otherwise, why else would you be going on all of these basically suicide missions to protect a planet that, from the outside looking in, we already know is doomed? Because this is a prequel game, but I feel like they did a fairly good job of hammering home why it was so important.
I agree, but we also don't see that in the game itself. Like, we see that the Covenant are here. There's no widespread, massive major alerts going on. We don't see more human fleet ships arrive to lock it down, like, immediately. Like, from where I am in the game starts in mid to late June, if I'm remembering correctly. And then by the time where I am narratively, it's August. and only just at that point of the Covenant just saying, fuck it, we're just going to steamroll humanity now, we're taking what we want. But it seems like even on the planet itself, there is no massive reaction. Everything just seems like whatever the level demands until that one major battle that I was going to talk about. But even then, that's like I don't know, it feels like that from a narrative perspective, it really just did not treat the threat as super serious. Like, the Covenant are here. Fuck. The game's up. We gotta go hard, gotta hit them hard, hit them with everything. And I mean everything. And it always seemed like there was no, it seemed to me, it just seemed like there was no urgency. You know what I mean? It just didn't feel that way to me.
There
Did
is
anybody get Ender's Game vibes from it? Like, the whole thing, honestly, just sort of child soldiers and the big climactic battle. Obviously, the endings are different, but both battles end up with the human force, or the good guy force, quote unquote, being just, all right, we need to just go all in, because if we lose this, we're doomed.
they have their similarities, but I wouldn't necessarily say it gave me Ender's Game vibes. A lot of it had to do with the fact that Ender's Game had a lot less, like as far as that program went, there was a lot less cloak and dagger behind it. It was pretty plain cut. That one,
There was a lot of, what are you talking about?
well, okay,
The
well,
whole
first
thing
of
was
all,
cloak and dagger, at least from the kids' perspective.
well, from the kids' perspective, yes. As far as the actual recruitment, the parents were aware that their children were being taken off planet to this training. They knew who their enemy was. They knew who they were fighting. They knew they weren't being trained to be the answer or the counterforce for a human insurrection. Like, no,
Okay,
like
that's
we're
fair.
being
That's
we're
fair.
being taken up there to fight aliens, and what do we fight? Aliens. Not fight
Also-
human insurrection. And oh, by the way, here comes some aliens. Let's kill them too.
Also, the kids in Ender Game weren't, they were not aware of what they were doing. They thought it was all a game, right? I haven't read the book.
Which that's where the cloak and
that's
dagger
cloak
comes
and
into
dagger
play.
part.
Yeah. Whereas the Spartans they are kidnapped, but they are basically like, no, you're soldiers now. and
Yeah,
we're gonna
the Spartans are told from day one, we are training you to be soldiers and to be killing machines.
Well,
Mhm.
the kids in Ender's Game knew that they were training to be soldiers. They didn't know that at the time of their training, they were, obviously, spoilers for Ender's Game, but that's even older than Reach.
Oh
so
yeah.
that
Yeah.
they were piloting actively the military forces. So they knew that what they were training for. They just didn't realize that their training was also active combat. So, like I said, and like Taylor said, it is not a one-to-one comparison, but it was something that while reading Reach, I sort of had these are kind of similar. At least, for being in the sliding scale of fiction, that's pretty similar.
Yeah, they have they definitely have similar points, but I wouldn't say that they're close enough to make a proper comparison between the two.
Oh no, not for
Yeah.
proper comparison. That was just more me musing of
That's
like
fair.
I said, you get vibes of one from the other.
Yeah, I can see that.
There was something.
Anywho, as you were,
There
back to your squabbles.
There is
Just
one.
imagining Taylor and I being the angry beavers, just
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just sitting over here, if it was a cartoon, filing my nails, just sort of glancing over every so often, making sure that nobody's completely set anything on fire yet. Okay, just either that or Godzilla, let them fight.
I'm actually going to defend one of your points here, John, and that is the inconsistency of the Covenant's MO on Reach. But the inconsistency comes from, there was a teaser trailer that was released, obviously, well before the game was, and all we saw was the planet Reach from space, slowly rotating. The sun, or its sun behind it, slowly starting to come around, and audio of radio chatter of, we've lost radar contact all of a sudden. Something, and then something on the planet explodes. It's like, what the hell was that? Oh shoot, the Covenant are here. Just out of nowhere, they're getting steamrolled by the Covenant. Where the hell did they come from? They're here in force. As opposed to when we actually get into the game, it's not immediately apparent that the Covenant are there, even though they've already made their way on world, and they are going about their quote unquote stealth mission. At first, they're there and they're operating. We just don't know it yet, and then operations slowly start to increase and intensify until it breaks out into that all-out war. Whereas opposed to that teaser trailer definitely made it seem like, oh, we're going from peace and serenity to boom, we are now suddenly in the middle of a war zone. So I will point out that inconsistency, at least between the marketing and the game.
Yeah. Oh, I sort of remember that trailer.
I'll see if I can find it.
Because to me, it's like, I mean, the story of the Fall of Reach is basically the origin story, and then, right before Halo happens, and when the battle for Reach begins. Also, I do believe like the human Admiral Cole, had already disappeared / died, although the omnibus makes it seem as if the Halo omnibus book makes it seem as if Admiral Cole had enough and decided to peace out instead of helping humanity avoid extinction, which is kind of cool. I'm not gonna begrudge that guy trying to peace out from that, but anyway, it just, like, one of the major stories that humans like to tell over and over again is the Two Towers siege. You know what I mean? It's like, or Thermopylae. Here stood 300 men against 10,000. Did they survive? Well, sit down, young one. Let me spin you a tale. It's, even though we already know that Reach will fall, like, trying to see that narrative happen is an interesting one, especially since you are a Spartan. You are this elite soldier with this amazing new armor that has shields, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And it would have been, like, I was talking about this with my wife about how it would have been much more interesting if you jumped from Spartan to Spartan to Spartan. Like, there are Spartans in space stations that are trying to keep the Covenant away. There's Spartans on planet that are doing the same thing, or they're counterattacking, or they're on the Pillar of Autumn, and Captain Keyes is basically, or the last level could be on the Pillar of Autumn, and Captain Keyes is like, we need to go, we need to get the hell out of here, and Covenant are boarding the ship, and there's like, Master Chief, before you go to sleep, I have a job for you. You see what I'm saying? It's like, and we see people die. We see those Spartans after each level, one Spartan or so dies, and even though it's very dark, I mean, and you probably will, from a narrative perspective, will not be able to attach yourself to anyone, but just having to go through that over and over again, especially since you are a Spartan, I feel like that would have been interesting.
I did find the trailer, by the way. I posted a link to it in the chat. It was the E3 2009 teaser trailer. And it is on Bungie's YouTube channel, if anyone would like to give it a watch. But yeah, it basically, from what the trailer shows, it's basically the planet Reach going from peace and serenity to, within 10 seconds, they're devolved into chaos.
Yeah. And narratively, to me, I feel that would have been a much stronger game than what we currently have. But again, I'm holding out hope that later on the story will pick up and I'll get interested. It can happen. It's possible. And if that is true, then my opinion of the game will change.
And I certainly hope it does for you, especially later on in the third act is when things really start getting intense. But I suppose we will have to wait and see. And you're playing it. You're playing it on Twitch, right? You're playing it on stream.
That's correct. Yes.
You can go and if you would like to follow NeoIvan on that journey, you can go check him out at twitch.tv/NeoIvangaming if you would like to follow along with that playthrough.
Yes, come on by.
I'm seriously thinking about replaying it myself just because it has been so long, and just because that game is so beloved for me. It's the game behind my screen name. It's shaped my entire online career. So of course I'm gonna have that bias towards it even all these years later. But no, I can definitely see a lot of the points that or I can definitely see where you're coming from on a lot of the points, especially from a narrative perspective. I do think that with the Covenant's MO, or them changing the way that they went about their initial operations on Reach, I feel like it could have worked a lot better if they did a better job of explaining why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it could have been a very, very legitimate reason as to why suddenly they're all very hush-hush and don't want to be seen or don't want to be found. They didn't do the best job of explaining as to why they did that. And I think the story could have been a lot more compelling if we had a better understanding of their mindset going into Reach.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's because of Forerunner technology is somehow is on Reach, and the Covenant want that for their journey. For those who are unaware, the Covenant have a religion where once they get enough Forerunner technology, they will go on the Great Journey, which is a religious experience or potentially another form of life. That's another reason why they kill humans on sight, because they see humans as just this blasphemous thing that should have been exterminated or should be exterminated. And it's interesting. But for the Covenant to change their MO, perhaps that is too disjarring, because they just want to kill all. It's like, hey, baby, you want to kill all humans? That is literally what they're doing.
Basically, they're on a holy crusade, is more or less their whole mindset behind this war, and that humanity are these vile heretics that have to be exterminated because they stand in the way of the Great Journey and preach blasphemy and heresy against their gods, the Forerunners. Which, I mean, in later games we find out just how backwards that whole thing is, but I won't get into all that here.
Yeah, that is quite the oof. I mean, as I've said, I have not played Halo 4 or 5. I don't remember, but I've watched a video of a versus who would win, the Necromorphs or the Flood, and that kind of went into the backstory of where the Flood came from and the Forerunners and all that. And woof, whoa, that is talk about reaching. That is yikes. But it is a fascinating debate. But it basically boiled down to is who could create the hive mind first, and then the other side would lose. But it's a fascinating debate.
I might have to take a look at that.
Yeah, definitely look up the Flood versus Necromorphs. It is a very interesting debate because it goes into the plus and minuses of Flood and Necromorphs, and also talks about Dead Space. I love Dead Space. Damn you, EA.
All right. There was one other thing I wanted. Oh yeah. Halo 4. I will say Halo 4 I did enjoy. And the ending was just absolutely beautiful, and I won't say anything beyond that.
Oh, sweet, because that's what I'm gonna on my Twitch channel after I'm done with Reach. I'm going to go into that.
Oh, very nice. And I genuinely hope you enjoy it. It definitely takes some risks, but personally, I believe that they paid off fairly well. But again, I have that bias. You may not necessarily feel the same way, and I'm okay with that. But and then as far as Halo 5 goes, save your money. Just save your money. I
Let it be
can't.
noted that Taylor is not a blind Halo-loving fan. She can still criticize them.
Halo
She just loves Reach.
Halo is not a perfect franchise. It has its problems, it has its trouble spots, it has its issues. I am not blind to them, and I am going to acknowledge them. They are not, however, going to change how beloved this franchise is to me and how much it has shaped my online persona, my branding, and my gaming career as a whole. I owe everything that I do content-wise to this franchise, which is why I sing its praises so highly. It has its problems. Halo 5 is a damn big one. But I will say, like, with what I've seen, especially with this most recent E3, what I've seen from Halo Infinite, from both its story and from its multiplayer, and the fact that the multiplayer is going to be free to play, that alone has me sold. I will play the Halo Infinite multiplayer for sure. The story, I will need to know a little bit more before I make a decision as to whether or not I'm going to play it. But I will make that judgment call when I do have that information and feel that I can make an informed decision. For now, I am simply going to sit back and wait and see.
Yeah, I have not seen much outside of the stuff from Halo from last year, where the graphics just looked awful, like really bad.
They're better.
I'm glad that they're better.
They're much better.
I am glad that despite the pandemic and all that, they are working on it. I'm very happy about that. But oof, I don't know how to feel about the new Halo. I kind of feel like, I mean, once the Covenant human war kind of stopped, it's just like, where do you guys go from here?
I've said this on the podcast before, but I'll repeat it again here for posterity. Master Chief's story, not the story of the Halo franchise. They could make as many different Halo games as they want, and I'll be happy. Master Chief's story should have ended. His narrative should have ended at the end of Halo 4. The fact that it carried on into Halo 5, where now, like you said, well, the war is over. Where do we really go from here? The whole thing just kind of fell apart and was very difficult for me to stay engaged and really stay attached to it, which is why I say with Halo 5, honestly, save your money. It's
hopefully it won't come out of the
not
Master
good.
Chief Collection.
I think Halo 4 is the last one slated for MCC, and then that's it.
Sweet.
But as again, like I said with Halo Infinite, they have my attention. I will simply need to wait and see how much more information we get about its campaign and its story before I make a final decision as to whether or not I'm going to get it and play it. I want to get it. I want it to be good. I really, really want them to redeem themselves from Halo 5. I really do. But I understand there's a chance it's not going to happen. But at the same time, please, oh please, let me be able to justify getting this game.
For real. I mean, I do. This reminds me of the Halo 3 ODST game, which I do like. I actually like that game a little bit more than Halo 3.
ODST, I think, is my favorite game out of the entire series, to be completely fair.
Really?
Because, okay, well, first and foremost, the music. The soundtrack in ODST is unlike any other game in the franchise, and it's glorious. Just like the soft pianos, the saxophone, just everything about it.
Yeah.
It's a Halo noir, basically,
It
is what
is.
it is. It's a mystery, which then takes me into the way that it tells its story. it tells its story very differently from any other Halo game, which every other game in this franchise tells a linear point A to point B story. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as they do it well. ODST, you start at point A, but then you jump to a time before point A, and you play through that to start putting together the pieces of the puzzle of, okay, what exactly happened here? And how do I reconnect with my team? Then you jump to point B. Then you jump back to another point before point A. Then you jump to... But they do it in a way that keeps you intrigued and keeps you engaged. That you want to play it all the way through to see, how do all the pieces fall into place? How does this all come together, and how does this end?
So good when done right.
Yep.
And
Plus Nathan Fillion.
Oh, God bless Nathan Fillion. And I will say, Halo 5 does get a few points from me just for bringing back Nathan Fillion as Buck in that game. Like he actually does reprise his role in Halo 5.
Nice.
I
still not gonna play the game.
Just
I'll just watch it on YouTube.
watch the cutscenes
the
on YouTube.
cinematics.
Watch the cinematics on
Yeah.
YouTube. It'll tell you all you need to know. But like I won't say how he reprises his role, but he does come back and actually does play a major role in the game, and it's very nice to
Wait,
at least
don't
see
tell
him.
me. Because I remember seeing a trailer where humans are hunting Master Chief. Please tell me that they're not going to hunt him down.
I am not going to tell you anything, and I will simply tell you, go watch the cinematics on YouTube.
Fair. That's fair.
Well, we're at an hour and a half. I think we've exhausted pretty much everything we could for today. I think we've made our points.
Oh yeah, thank
pretty
you for
clear.
making this the easiest episode on me ever, Ivan.
Oh, yeah?
This is great. I got my rants in early with the stuff about the QA and praising the Sonic concert, so I got my word count today. Don't worry about it. And afterwards, I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna sit back and let you two jam on this, because I've never played. Well, I've played Halo at friends' houses for local multiplayer. I am garbage at first-person shooters, always have been. For that reason, well, and the fact that I just have never owned an Xbox system, I have never played a Halo game through from beginning to end. The fact that I read Fall of Reach itself was kind of an anomaly. So I can't really comment on any of this past the bits that I remember from the book literally over a decade ago at this point. So I'm very glad that you two were able to just sort of go to town on it. Thank you for indulging me with a little experiment at the start of seeing, all right, can we get this into a structured thing? But like I said, we'll pretend that we're civilized people for 6 minutes, and if it doesn't work, we're going to drop it, and we dropped it, and it worked just fine.
Yeah.
I definitely think it did. But I believe that is going to do it for us tonight, starting the ending music. Not now, because apparently I tabbed out of it. Whoops. There we go.
Yay!
All right, so
Hooray.
once again, thank you to NeoIvangaming for joining us this week. You can catch him over at twitch.tv/NeoIvangaming, as well as over at twitch.tv/DigitalEraTwitch, where we also have our radio dramas. We just had our last one yesterday, as a matter of fact. We did our presentation of Treasure Planet. You can watch the VOD now on Twitch. It will be going to YouTube very shortly. Thank you to Readings by Beatrice for sponsoring today's episode of the podcast, and she will be sponsoring us for a very long time, so I'm very looking forward to that partnership. But as always, thank you all for watching. We will see you here again next week.
Bye.